since the baton was passed, hopping down, cause failing's not an option, and dad is not a noun, not at all.
To another episode of Dad is Not a Noun. My name is Ishmael, changing the narrative for men of color and fatherhood, as well as changing the narrative on the things I care about. And today I have a very special guest. He is the returning champ. I have him back on. He is the award-winning San Francisco-based illustrator, author, and creative director. He's been doing this over 2 decades. That's how dope this brother is. He's a father first, devoted husband, and also he is the founder and the owner of Conscious Publishing.
Yep, Conscious Culture Publishing. Yep, that's it.
Culture Publishing. He has these amazing books, and we're going to talk about his current book, The Genius of Egypt Part 2, which is out now, which is a part of, I hope it's going to be a long series about the godfather of STEM. And if you don't know what STEM is, science, technology, education, art, and math. Imhotep is the godfather of STEM. It wasn't a European dude. It was a guy from Egypt. And Marlon McKenney is with me. Thank you for joining, brother. How you doing, brother?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing very well. How you doing, Ishmael?
I'm doing well. This amazing brother has worked with brands like Apple, Sony, EA, Motown, Universal Records, JP Morgan, Chase and Company. Like, I'm not trying to make his head bigger, but I'm just delivering facts. That's how dope this brother is on with me. And we're going to have a great conversation about this book. My next question, I ask all my guests who comes on, how's your heart? Because I'm all about mental health.
Yeah, I mean, my heart is doing really well. You know, I feel really blessed. My thought is God gave me a gift. The gift is storytelling. You know, you mentioned before I've been working for a lot of like corporate companies, and maybe 6 years ago, I thought like, yo, I've been learning like animation and design and illustration. What am I going to do for the Black community, right? And so that's when I started Conscious Culture Publishing, focused on African historical fiction, and really educating the young kids, diverse Black kids, I mean, of all colors, about Africa, about our history, so that they can learn more and grow beyond this this narrative of we're just slaves and that's it. No, we have a rich history, and I just want to visualize that for kids moving forward.
And let's go into that amazing storytelling. Let's get into the godfather of STEAM, Imhotep. I'm going to bring up Imhotep.
Yep.
Sorry about that. It's been a long,
you're good.
But let's get into the godfather of STEM. Before we jump into part 2, let's take a journey back to the first book and why you wanted to tell his story.
Yeah. So like a lot of kids out there, when you're going to school, when going to elementary school, you don't really learn anything about African history, right? I was taught that we were just slaves and that was about it. I knew nothing about my history. It wasn't until I went to college. I went to Long Beach State. I studied under Malenga Karenga, who's the Black Studies head over there. And that was the first time I really started learning about African history. And specifically, I was learning a lot about Egypt. And one of the pieces of that was I learned about Imhotep. And Imhotep, in case you don't know, is one of the world's first multidisciplinary geniuses. He was great at sciences. He was great in mathematics. He was great in terms of architecture. I mean, the brother was really smart and intelligent, and it inspired me, right? And he was also the person who built the first pyramid, the Step Pyramid of Saqqara, and that's what this story is about. It kind of breaks down how it was really built. There's this kind of myth narrative in terms of pyramids and pyramid building about it was a bunch of slaves doing it and stuff like that. But no, it was a lot of science behind how it was put together. And I did a lot of research. I looked around, went to libraries, checked the internet, looked at a lot of different scholars. And in this book, I actually break down the process of how the first pyramid was built in ancient Egypt.
And what I love about the first book is that you're very detailed, but you make it where it's enjoyable to read. You know, like that's the one thing about like with history book, like history,
Mhm.
is that sometimes it get dull and boring, but
Yes.
you make it entertaining. Talk about that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's important that we kind of keep the kids' attention nowadays, or people's attention in general, with the cell phones and television and all these distractions out there. It's difficult for kids to like sit down and actually read a book and get some information. So I thought it was important that, hey, okay, if I'm going to put out this story and I want to like start to educate these children, you got to make it exciting. You got to make it fun. The narrative and the story has to have these kind of ups and downs and twists and turns to keep kids involved and engaged in the story. And I think that's one of the things in terms of successful that I've done with this book, because when I talk to kids out there, they're like, oh, it was so fun. It was exciting. I really liked it. And they're getting the message without being bored all the way through it, if that makes sense.
Yes, and when I'm all about character development. Like take me into
Mhm.
that journey of character development of the main character.
Yeah. So the thought is Imhotep, when he was kind of coming up, he wasn't a noble person. In other words, he came from a very humble beginning, but he was clearly very intelligent and really smart. And I was trying to put myself in the shoes of a person that was like that. How do you become a genius? You got to study, And in the Genius of Egypt Part 1, there's a lot of talk about him studying, looking through scrolls, going through the libraries in order to maximize his intelligence. And then at a certain point, after learning so much, people start to recognize that. And that's also true with life. Nothing's going to be handed to you. You have to keep I guess, looking for that information, looking for the knowledge and learning more and more and growing and growing. And as you grow, that's when you'll start to be successful about the things you have in life. So that's one thing I really want to focus on, is him being like humble, because Imhotep was also a priest. So making sure he's humble, looking out for the entirety people of Egypt. So there's no ego involved. Because in order for you to keep evolving, you have to have a purpose that's much higher than just yourself, right? You have to have a purpose that's more important, thinking about bigger things like people, the universe, culture, like all these different things. And I wanted that to come across in the story, as well as the character of Imhotep.
Definitely. And I know it sounds like a cliche. What I love about the story, especially transition into part 2, is
Mhm.
that cliche: with great power comes great responsibility. Without
Yes.
giving too much into the second book, but I enjoyed the evolution of the character. Like in part 2, he start understanding like his true purpose and his power. And again, without giving too much, people have to buy the book, but kind of talk about that evolution through the main character from the first book to the second book without giving too much detail. I know
Oh
that's
yeah,
fine.
it's fine. I can unpack a little bit more, give people more information about the story. In the first book, The Genius of Egypt, it's a little bit more of an origin story, kind of like how he started off. If you don't know, Imhotep, it was also the trusted advisor to a great pharaoh, Pharaoh Dozier, um, and the pyramid was built based on the tomb of Dozier, right? So when he started off from these humble beginnings, he eventually won the trust of the pharaoh, and that's kind of what the first book was about. And the second book, it's more focused on the pyramid building itself. But I also wanted to include some kind of like excitement, so I kind of added assassins and fight sequences and a little bit more excitement, for the reader. But to kind of go back to what you were talking about, Ishmael, one of the big key components that I wanted to come across in the second book was knowledge of self.
Mm.
That self knowledge, and being aligned with your spirituality, with your mind, with with the world and the universe, right? And I was very intentional in showing that and telling that narrative, and how, because Imhotep was also a priest, trying to spread the word to people about knowledge of self, so they can focus more on spirituality and their mental, as opposed to the physical, just physical wealth and just physical things in on the earth, if that makes sense.
No, so true. I love it, because while you were talking about, I brought up this image of
Yeah.
in the book. This is a prime example of um, him going depth into his power to understand his intellectual, but very important, his spiritual connection. And you know, like yeah, this image right here is a perfect example of that right there. It's just embodies everything you said. And hopefully for adults, this is for kids,
Yeah.
to understand the importance of self-value,
Yeah.
understand affirmation, and understand the importance of self-love, because you have to love yourself
Yeah.
before you can love someone else, or help anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of talks about the Step Pyramid of Saqqara, how it was symbolic of a stairway to heaven, or the stairway of higher thinking. When we start off as a baby and the kids, we're just kind of focused on the physical, eating, drinking, sleeping, like just those physical attributes. But as you get stronger, as you get older, you start to focus a little bit, start thinking of like higher thinking, of morality, of spirituality. And the symbol, the pyramid is basically a symbol of that. And if you go pick up the book, there's quite a bit of information about that in the book, that kind of shows you the path that Egyptians were thinking back in the day. Because right now we're living in a society that is very materialistic, right? You know what I mean? It's just money, 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 money. And I wanted to show the other side of that, because at the end of the day, you can't take the money with you when we move on to the next stage of our spiritual life, when we pass away, right? We cannot bring all of the accolades and all the cars and all of the cribs and all that stuff with us. So, but what we can bring is our heart, like you were saying before, right? Our spirit. That is something that is infinite and is going to go on forever. But you got to make sure that your spirit is aligned and it'll go to the right place when we do pass away. So I touch in a little bit on that. So yeah, we've got some fun, exciting stuff in terms of some fight sequences. And we also talk about the pyramid and how it's built. But there is a component in this book of spirituality that I definitely want to come forth when people read it.
And the one thing I love about it is, like, this has like a vibe of Harry Potter, because you see him grow into what he becomes in the future. But talk about the significance of the villain in part 2, without giving too much away.
Oh yeah, I'll give some away. It's okay. So for this piece, while in the story itself, Imhotep is putting together and building the Step Pyramid of Saqqara. He's got thousands of people that's helping him out. He's the main architect for the building of this pyramid. But while he's doing it, there's like 3 assassins that are coming to take him out, because of like a shadowy figure that's jealous of him, right? And this is one of those things that happens to everybody. Anytime we're trying to be successful and trying to do something in our life, we're always going to have those haters out there, right? There will always be hater. Like, for example, the character that you have in front of you right now, I named him Narcissus, because he's basically a narcissist, right? A person that just thinks they're right all the time, a person that just can't be reasoned with because they're so caught up in their own narrative. They're not thinking about other people. And that's a lot of people right now, especially with social media and everything. And these are some of the elements that I just wanted Imhotep to have to battle through in order to achieve anything. Because I'll tell this to anybody out there: any type of success or anything you want to do in your life, there are always going to be obstacles. There are going to be people that say you can't do it or you shouldn't do it. Don't listen to them. Focus on your goals and you will achieve those goals eventually.
And I totally agree with you on 100%. So what's the next journey for our main character? I know there's going to be a part 3 eventually, a part 4, part 5, part 6. So
Yeah, that's right.
what's the future trajectory of our main character?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the Genius of Egypt, I guess you can still call it franchise. I mean,
Yes.
honestly, I'm taking notes from you, Ishmael and Ajaka. Like, congratulations on
Thank
winning
you.
the award recently. But I want to start bringing it really to life and animating it. If you don't know, if people out there don't know, all of this, all these graphics, all these illustrations are created in 3D using 3D technology. They're all rigged characters, which means we can animate them. So now it's starting to think about bringing some of those stories to life, right? And so that's the thought for 2024 is the start doing some animation and really bring these stories out so that people can see them on a bigger level. Not, the books are great. The books are great. But of course, people want to see the story animated as
So
a
bring up those
TV
books
show.
again, so people
Oh
can
yeah,
see again.
absolutely.
Bring those
Oh yeah,
books up again.
absolutely.
Not yep.
Part 1, part 2. But everybody wants to see them animated. I mean, ever since I did my first book, that's what they've been saying. Oh, I can't wait to see it animated, with music and voiceover and sound and all that type of stuff. So that's basically where I'm headed for the Genius of Egypt Part 2 franchise, and just keep spreading the word. Honestly, that's probably the main piece for 2024.
And let the people know, if you want that to happen, you have to pay for it. It's not going to be free. So I'm just going to let you know out there, people want to say, oh, I hope you do this. The only way it's going to happen is that you have to keep supporting people like Marlon
Yeah.
and what he's doing. Because if you don't support it, you talk about, oh, I want to see this. But if you don't support him, if he doesn't have the logistics, the numbers showing that this is a word, I have a very lucrative IP that I
Yes.
can make into an animation. If he doesn't
Yep.
have that, it does not get created. So again, if you want this to be an animation, you got to keep supporting him. And the way to
Yep.
support him is to buy his books. And
Exactly.
congratulations on the award-winning Makita. That was an
Thank you. Thank
extraordinary.
you very much. I appreciate that.
Talk about that success, the success of Makita, Queen of Sheba.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned before, African historical fiction, that's the lane of conscious culture publishing. I think it was like a year and a half, 2 years ago, we put out Makita, the Queen of Sheba, that story specifically about female leadership. We wore a Biba Award. Wait, I think I might even have it over here.
Short award.
Won a
I'm the
Biba
drag.
Award. Yeah. Which was great for the illustration. And that book is about female leadership. And it's important, just like Ishmael was saying a second ago, if you want to see more characters of color, if you're sick of this same old stuff coming out of, like, the Marvel movies are cool, but come on, it's been like decades and decades, and you're sick of all the same old stuff on Hulu, in the movie theaters, on Netflix, on TV, and you want to see people that represent your story, your history, you got to support the people who are doing it independently, because they're not in the big major studios. They're not thinking about us. You know what I mean? They're not thinking about us all. Even if you look at Enter the Spider-Verse and Black Panther, even those are one of the hugest box office numbers, you still don't see them cranking out a whole bunch of Black content focused on our stories, because they really don't want to do it. They're kind of stuck in this old paradigm of doing this old stuff. So the only way for us to give you more of the content that you want, you're going to have to support us. And the good news about that is we are the ones that are telling it from our perspective, not another group trying to sound like us. We are being authentic, and that authenticity is what sells. The authenticity is what people want, and that's what we're going to be providing, is keeping it real, keeping it authentic, and none of this fake stuff that you keep seeing out there.
Facts, and I couldn't even say it better than that, man. So what's the next step in 2024? Are you coming out with are you doing a new book on a new historical figure? So what's next?
Yeah. So what's next for me right now is I'm actually in 2024 going to put out a nonfiction book. And this nonfiction book is basically showing creatives out there how to make money in advertising. It's going to be a book to focus on how to make six figures in advertising. I've been in advertising for many, many years, and there's not hardly any Black folks at all in the business. And it's wide open out there. You know what I'm saying? For all the young people that are creatives out there, you can have a long career and make good money, great money, throughout your life in your career. And I just want to expose more African Americans, more Black folks to that lane, because there is not a lot of us and there's plenty of room. So I just want to put together basically a guidebook of how to get into advertising, and get it out there so we have more of our people in these positions so that we can start influencing and changing the narrative out there when you're looking at ads and advertising and stuff like that. And plus, man, things are getting expensive nowadays. I mean, I'm like, how do people freaking live? I mean, food and everything's so expensive. So if there's a way that I can take the knowledge that I have and give it to other folks so that they can make a living and raise their families and, take their kids through school and all that stuff. Hey, I want to be a part of that. So 2024, I'm going to do a book specifically about getting into advertising as a Black creative. But I'm also thinking about coming out. So I have another book that I did called Uptown Dragon, takes place in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and doing part 2 of that because I've been hearing from the bookstores that they want it. Little boy and a dragon.
So that's what they want, man. You got to give them what they want, man. That's
what I'm hearing. So yeah, that's the next plan.
The streets are talking and they watching. You better deliver.
Yeah. Yep. I'm gonna give the people what they want. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're asking for. So that's going to be the next one. In terms of illustration, is going to be probably Uptown Dragon Part 2.
That's awesome, man. Again, this has been an amazing conversation, bro. Thank you for jumping on. Thank you for the work you're doing in the community. Thank you for your partnership with Afro Comic Con. I know behind the scenes, a lot of people don't know that you've done a lot of great work behind the scenes, helping them out. So thank you for pushing the envelope. Thank you for changing the narrative. Thank you for creating this platform of authentic storytelling, and it's coming from the heart. So thank you. How can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me consciousculturepublishing.com, or on IG, consciousculturepublishing.com. Pretty easy to find, or even if you just Google The Genius of Egypt 2, it'll pop up. Books are available on Amazon, all kinds of online retailers. Yeah, pick it up, and it's Christmas is coming up, or it might even be past after this podcast is up. But yeah, feel free to pick it up. Yeah, and support your authors of color. No doubt.
Definitely, man. Go get this book because it's important, because you're going to learn the story about the Godfather of STEM. And that's important. That a lot of, like Marlon was saying, a lot of people don't know this man is the reason when you talk about science, technology, education, art, and math, the origins is from Egypt. And so again, I thank you for telling the story. Again, this has been another great conversation here on the podcast. Like, subscribe, go Google Play, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you see me. That is not a noun. That's where we can find me. And we're out. Peace.